And even when you're looking at Beat the Cat, that's when you get more into
Beat the cat.
sorry, Beat the Cat, Save the Cat. No, we don't beat cats. Sorry, it's called Save the Cat. I'm Sam.
And I'm Allie.
Welcome to the Nit Writs podcast. We're talking about story arcs and story structures this week.
Yeah, which is probably, honestly, we probably can't really talk about all of them. Or we can't probably do them justice, but we're gonna
Yeah.
talk about them. Yeah, we could probably honestly devote like an episode to each one. There's so
Oh, yeah.
much to all of
There
them.
are a lot. This first one, I love that you ended it with LOL damn. Because
Yeah, because
this document that you put in here is probably like it's a table of all the different versions of story arc styles. So you have like, it's big. So you have like the 3 act, the 4 act, or and then you have like the different people who've come up with different story arc sort of,
little
points.
tools and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
tools. And right, like Joseph Campbell's is on, yeah, Joseph Campbell's is on here, and you have
hmm
other literary people. But yeah,
Yeah,
and that was overwhelming in the best way. I was like, hell yeah, we got stuff to talk about. If
it has
nothing
a
else, we could
scientific
talk about.
method on it.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And there's like both Eastern and Western on here, which is kind of cool to like see the
Yeah.
different story arcs. And then I mean there's ones that are on here that are, from I think like Plato's is on here. Or it was Aristotle's is on here. Yeah, yeah. So Aristotle on tragedy is towards the bottom, right? You have the European musical. I think that so Aristotle's tragedy would be like Greek tragedies. Comedies are
Okay.
on here, stuff like that. So it's like the
Oh, yeah, I
different
see that.
ones throughout literary history that you can plot for the ways in which they plot a story arc. And it's overwhelming,
hmm
but very
Yeah.
cool.
It
A
was
lot of
honestly, I always find that when I look up, like sometimes I just want to see like story structure, and there's this Reddit thread where somebody said, "Where's all the story structures?" and someone just posts that as a comment,
yep.
and so it's honestly probably a bunch of people seeing that, but
But it's also really cool because, like, a lot of them are very similar, right? You usually
yeah,
have like a 3, 4, 5, or 7 act breakup, is what I've
hmm
seen. There's also a 2 act in here that's in the like European musical style, which is Hamilton's a 2 act, by the way. And then, yeah, and then you have like, they all have, inciting incidents and the catalysts and pitch points or plot points and the climax and the return and the all is lost. Like a lot of those sort of the same
yeah,
language appears in them. But
yeah,
I think that there's ones that are very simple that I find to not be helpful because they're too simple for me. So like the 3 act structure in its very, very sort of basic form, you have
hmm
exposition, exposition, an exciting incident, plot point 1, some rising action, midpoint, plot point 2, pre-climax, climax, and then the end. And like,
hmm
yeah, you can do that, but I think that it's helpful to either have some of those defined or have a few more places,
pieces,
a few
yeah,
more pieces. Now, a lot of people work really well with just the 3 act, 4 act, like, you have you have a hook, you have a catalyst, you have some rising action, then you have the climax, and or you have a crisis and a climax, and then boom, then it's the falling action, right? Or like things
hmm
that are really sort of straightforward. I put the murder mystery one on there because it's a little bit different with what falls into those places. So,
yeah,
right, instead of it being like I mean, it is an inciting incident, but you have like present the crime, introduce the sleuth, offer some suspects, introduce the crime complications, and then you have the subplot of like what the sleuths are doing, what's their relationship, right?
hmm
And then
Yeah.
the investigation, you have some suspect stuff. Usually you have some sort of red herring moment where they're like, "Ah, got you, got the guy," and then you find out that's not really the guy.
Mhm.
Some plot twisty stuff, and then, confrontation where the bad guy tells you everything, which is cliche as fuck, and then you catch them and it is what it is.
Mhm.
But it's slightly different than the ones that were on the list as far as how to do a narrative arc, because the whole point of that story is to solve a mystery or solve
Yeah,
a
it's just
crime.
a mystery. It
Um,
still is kind of similar-ish structure, but,
mhm.
like, yeah, of course, it's nice to have some specifics there,
And you
for
can
sure.
definitely take the traditional like 3 act and over like
Add
map
stuff.
it
Yeah.
right onto the one that's more specific for a murder mystery. It's the same sort of
Yeah.
thing. You have listened to and or watched more videos on people talking about this, specifically the Save the Cat one, right? Um,
Okay, yes. So Gina Denny is someone that I've watched like all her TikToks on, and she talks about Save the Cat a lot. But I don't. I probably listen to like not necessarily just plot structure videos, but yes, I have listened to a lot. Sorry, and for asking a question, did I cut you off?
well, I was gonna say, I was basically nodding that you probably have more
Mm.
experience with working with literary arcs, narrative arcs, and but
I'd
maybe
actually
not in
say no.
poetry. Yeah, because poetry's like fucking off the cuff. Go for it.
I mean, there is structure that you can have, but just not. I'm actually not really not used to thinking in this way,
Hmm.
and I know, like, part the stupid ass artist in me hears a structure and wants to break it. Like,
Yep.
and part of me is like, okay, you need to know the classic, like, you need to know the rules so that you can break them
Hmm.
interestingly, right? And so
Hmm.
I respect it. I think it's interesting. I do think there's obviously like, it's less that these are things that you should do and more that to make a story satisfying, you need to like what I know from poetry and from writing experience is how to pull a reader in.
Yeah.
So I could probably do some of these things instinctually, but it's these things just identify things we already know about stories. So, you know, we want to see a hero succeed and we don't want it to be easy. Therefore, you need to have ways to have them try things and fail and go through triumphs and
Yeah.
so I think probably like, a lot of people sort of reject a structure or if they're like me and they're like more of a pantser. They're like, I don't want to do a structure. It's really I think it's more of a way of observing your story. And I think that's why I did try plotting some stories and I failed miserably. I mean, or I felt like, okay, I just put some shit down. I'm not gonna do
Yeah.
that. Like
Yeah.
but, but I think, like, I'll probably use these structures to examine whatever
Mhm.
story comes out when I finally finish it. I will
Yeah.
probably impose these structures and rearrange things based on
Yeah.
these because they do tell us, it makes sense that you need, you know, a a upbeat scene followed by a more relaxed scene, and you need
Hmm.
that they're useful tools to,
Yeah.
like, people's focus and their ability to follow a story needs to have some of these rhythms because they're natural rhythms. It's kind of like
Well, and
a
it's
pentameter is imposed, but it's also because we naturally kind of talk in a 5 syllable or
mhm.
a
Yeah.
10 syllable 5 foot line is a very
Yeah.
natural cadence.
Well, I think also it is helpful. I mean, this is, I mean, again, I mentioned that Aristotle's is up
Yeah.
here, right? So, like, people have been writing in with these sorts of these similar ebbs and flows. There's variations to it, of course, because there's this
Hmm.
whole fucking massive table with a million of them on there. But they have a lot of the same sort of vibes to them, and they have a
Yeah.
lot of the same moments depending upon where they're putting them. And so it's the people who, this is how stories have been told
Hmm.
for a very long time, and so it's like, well, that those are what successful stories fall into, and if you want a successful story, it makes sense to make those beats because then
Yeah.
it's satisfying, it does what it's supposed to. Um, I think using it as a calibrator for what your story is, if you're more of a pantser, I think that makes perfect sense, right?
Hmm.
As opposed to necessarily being able to plot it out ahead of time. I'm psychotic and I do that.
I think
Um,
that's more common. I feel like,
I
or maybe
also
not.
think that and it doesn't have to be like the full, right, super crazy, everything is super detailed, you make every single beat. But I do
Mhm,
think that if you're going to play with the rules, you still need to figure out, okay, well, how many acts do I have?
mhm,
And then once you figure out your acts, then you can kind of go through, and because I feel like if a story deviates from any of these structures, but it still has that structure, to some, like, it has those moments, I think it makes sense. But if you
mhm.
have a story that doesn't have the rising action, or has very very short amount of rising action, then the climax is then it's less
Yeah. You can't
exciting,
really you
you
wouldn't
know.
naturally write a story with no rising action,
Yeah, and I
you
understand,
know?
like, a lot more people are, like, really shortening that percentage of their story that is that setup, that exposition space, like, the very beginning side of things. I've seen, like, the
You mean
percentage of
before
what.
this inciting incident, you mean?
Well, so before the inciting incident, the
Oh,
amount of
yeah, yeah.
percentage, I've seen that vary all over. Some people are like
Mhm.
4%, 20%, and you're like, okay. And so like
Yeah.
that's where I think you can play with some of those things. I think that my story has two inciting incidences. It has kind of the minor first part of it, and then there's some kind of chaos, and then there's like the big inciting incident. So like even my story, I don't think plugs in perfectly. There's even some moments with Liev's story that I don't think hits the same beats, because yes, he's main-ish character, but his
He's your B
story,
plot.
he is my B plot.
Mhm.
And so his beats are slightly, I think there's one spot that I'm like, yeah, that doesn't really line up. Or I have one that like kind of combines it, because those things go together a little, like in my head, the scene makes
Mhm.
sense to kind of work together. Um, but I still make those beats, even if they're not as formulaic as, say, Genevieve's plot points.
Yeah. Now, okay, so you say you're talking about two inciting incidents. Do you think like one is like in a call to adventure and the other is like a first threshold if we're looking at the hero's journey one? You think it's like that? Like one is like, yeah,
Yes.
technically it got things started, but
Yes.
then and the second thing is just like a complication? Or
Yes. So the
or it's like it pushes it's a turning point?
Yeah,
It's a
so
yeah, it's
from
definitely a
yeah,
place
yeah.
point.
Yeah, so the call to adventure would be when she saved Gideon. There's some back and forth, but there's
She
like
decides
there's a
to, yeah.
crazy bond thing, or like there's a internal motivation that she doesn't quite understand. This guy fucking is stabbed and falls into the water, and she's just like, I can't leave that dude. And so she
Yeah.
jumps into the water. And so yeah, that feels like, if I'm plugging it into the hero's journey, that's more of the call to adventure, because she's
Yeah.
like, what did I do? But I can't
And
leave
then
him.
does
Like
she do some refusing
yeah, kind of.
or
Yeah,
like
she
hesitancy or putting things off?
there's a little crazy. She's like very intent on saving his life, and
Mhm.
there's debate between characters. Like her and Liev are a little bit at odds, and she's kind of like, "What did I do? I kind of fucked up, but like I just pulled this guy out of the water, so I got to like do something." And then we meet Ren and Cormac, which technically you wouldn't really get until you start getting into the like test allies enemies step of
Mhm.
that. And even when you're looking at beat the cat, that's when you get more into
Beat the cat.
sorry, beat the cat, save the cat. No, we don't beat cats. Sorry, it's called save the cat.
Uh-huh.
So when you get to when it breaks into two and this hero can no longer fight it, they
Uh-huh.
begin their journey, and then it says B story, introduce helper characters that will assist the heroes. Like we've already been introduced to Ren and Cormac much earlier. They kind
Mhm.
of come in right after, I guess. So like the
But
setup,
maybe they don't have a big role until then. Is that what it is?
yeah,
Like, we
yeah, yeah,
know them, they're not, like,
yeah.
doing much?
So, yeah, so between the setup and the
Not
catalyst
that it
and
has to
debate,
follow for
like they're
them.
not, and so like there's a little bit more fluidity, I think, between those. So for me, you get like the setup is that she saves Gideon, but the setup here says like show the hero living in an open status. It illustrates their flaws and examples of their home life and social life, right? So I'm like, well, that's the background. So then right after that is when she saves Gideon. That changes everything. So it is the catalyst,
Mhm.
but there's no like the break where it says like the hero can no longer fight it. So the catalyst in debate is kind of longer. So
Yeah.
she saves him, she brings him to her house, she has her mom heal him. That's a couple of chapters of this like what the fuck. Liev's being like, what the fuck? And then you actually see the healing process while they're trying to do the healing. Cormac and Gideon bust into the house, or Cormac and Ren bust in the house, and are like, don't touch him, I got it. And like they have this whole debate between the characters of like, you can't take him, he's gonna die. And they're like, fuck off. And everyone, Liev's like, let him go because it's gonna get us all killed. So like there's some chaos happening. The mom heals Gideon, and then she's like, okay, you gotta leave in the morning because this is dangerous to be doing this shit. And before they can leave, they're attacked. And then that's the
Oh, yeah.
moment. And so when they're attacked, Liev is captured, and Gideon and Ren and Cormac take Genevieve with them because mom has been
Mhm.
decommissioned for a little bit.
Yeah.
And dad is now going to go and save Liev. He's like, you take her south because she has this goal, and I'm going to go and save Liev. That's going to be my goal. And we will figure out our shit later. Like, we just got to get to our goal.
Yeah.
So yeah. So the
It actually
catalyst,
does,
and
you could argue that it follows that structure, but it also doesn't need to perfectly, but yeah, I think that makes
yeah,
total
and I'm okay
sense.
that it doesn't necessarily perfectly, because the catalyst for Genevieve is that she jumped into the water and saved Gideon, but the
Yeah.
catalyst for Liev is that he's captured, and that's a later moment. And so, like, but
Mhm.
those are intrinsically intertwined, right? Like, they wouldn't have been attacked if she hadn't saved Gideon. They already
Yeah.
have some structure that's happening between them that we're seeing some tension. Like, she lied to him about something that he thinks is kind of a big deal. Now she's bringing in fucking fugitives and criminals into their house and threatening them. And so you see this really strong bond between them, but you also see the places that it's being chipped away at. And you see these moments where
Mhm.
it's like, I got your back, sister. I love you, brother. But also, why are you making poor decisions that are putting us, like, our safety in threat? And so, already before you get to chapter 12, hopefully, right, you get a story that shows this is a tight knit family, but there's flaws, right? They have each other's backs, but they're going to call each other on their bullshit. And also, they might be super close, but they might be growing a little bit apart. Like, something's going on here where it's not as perfect as it looks because she's keeping secrets. Then he finds out, he forgives her, but then she does this other thing. And now he's pissed because he's like, you just brought these people into our home that could literally get us killed by the king. Like,
Mhm.
what the fuck? And she's like, well, I couldn't just leave him. You wouldn't leave him either. And he's like, well, I don't want to admit to that, but still, like, this is not cool. And
Yeah.
so, then the last words he says to her basically is like, well, if you would just stop trying to fuck dangerous men, maybe we would all be safe, is basically what he says to her. And then they get cut off from each other because he gets captured and she goes somewhere else. And so, like, that's going to replay in her head during the fun and games.
Yeah. But I realized as we were talking, I was like, "What does breaking into 2 mean?" And then I was like, "Oh, it's breaking to act 2."
Yeah, yeah,
It's like
yeah.
that's what I mean by, like, I feel like I didn't know the structure, like, I know it, but I, like, don't, some things I'm just like, "Brain."
Well, we're
Anyway,
not actually authors yet, right? So, like, we
mhm.
haven't necessarily internalized this. We're not, I mean, I'm not a fiction writer
Yeah, I
by
feel like I should know it more.
I'm familiar with the hero's journey, not because of English classes, but because of religious studies courses.
Mm. I'm vaguely familiar, but mostly because of English, yeah.
Yeah, and
So
so for the hero's journey, right, it is the most popular one. I know that that's been tweaked and there's other people's hero's journeys. The ones that I'm
mhm,
most familiar with is Carl Jung's hero journey. He came up with the concept of the collective unconscious, and that
mhm,
all of human history is collected, and we all can tap into all of human history together within this memory part of us that is called the collective unconscious. And we do that through this thing called archetypes. That you have the mother archetype, you have the father archetype, you have the witch archetype, you have the maiden and and those are archetypes. You have the trickster, that's an archetype. And so the reason why so many different societies and cultures have stories that motifs overline with each other is because of this collective unconscious that is a shared human experience across time, and that we retell stories that fit our specific cultural narrative but through the collective narrative of these archetypes. That's a very brief way to explain that, and probably not
yeah.
the best way, but that's what I got from it. Then this hero journey, circle, cycle, whatever narrative, where he says that you can take just about any mythological story of a hero and you can plug it into this rubric and it will line up. But like, so I could plug Moses in, right? So, ordinary world. Moses starts off, he's a prince of Egypt. Call to adventure, he finds out, right? He has the dream where God tells him that he is the son of Yocheved and he is he's a slave born. He's a Hebrew, right? He
Mhm.
refuses the call. He says, fucking no, thank you. Then he goes, right? There's meeting the mentor. The, I guess his
Well, it's
doesn't
mm,
work out perfectly for the mentor part at this point because I think that like Jethro would be the first mentor, but that's later. So you get this cross the first threshold, right? Where he kills the Egyptian slave driver, right?
mhm.
And then he flees. So then tests and allies, he wanders around the desert for a bit. He finds his wife's family. He marries his wife. He has his father-in-law.
Jethro's the mentor.
Jethro is the mentor, so he meets him there during test and allies and enemies, right?
Mhm.
Um, Also, if you're looking at the Prince of Egypt, the movie, his wife can be considered a mentor, and he met her before he crosses his first threshold, right? He meets her as
Mm.
she's offered to him, and she escapes, and whatever else. So then they cross the first threshold. He kills the slave driver. He leaves Egypt. Test and allies. He hangs out with Jethro and his wife, whose name is. We just talked about this yesterday. Why can I not remember her name?
Zipporah.
Thank you, Zipporah. So he meets Zipporah before he kills the slave driver. Okay,
Mhm.
kills the slave driver. Then he goes. He marries Zipporah. Jethro's her father-in-law. They become homies. Okay, tests, allies, enemies. Innermost cave. He literally goes into a cave.
Mhm.
Okay, he
Mhm.
gets spoken to by the burning bush. Then he has the ordeal. That's the whole let my people go. Okay,
Okay.
full 10 plagues all in number 8. Then he gets the reward, okay, because now he has separated the sea. His people are free. Then you have the road back. It's a very long road back for the Jews. So it's 40 years of the road back. The resurrection moment is kind of questionable, but now you have these 10 commandments. You have a birth of a new something, or the
Um,
solidification. It's not the birth of a new religion. You have a solidification of a birthing moment. You have a resurrection. You have a something, and really it is a resurrection, right? You had
mhm.
Hebrews who
It's a
were able
return
to
to
be Hebrew,
mhm.
and then their culture died as slaves. And when he brings the 10 commandments, that's the resurrection of that culture, it's the resurrection of that law and that religion and that faith and all the things. And then you have
Mhm.
the return with elixir, right? That he returns, he actually dips, but they enter into the promised land. He takes them into
Mhm.
the promised land while he stands back and dies before he goes in the promised land, but he
Yeah.
gets them there. I looked at the 5-act structure, and I don't know if maybe it's just because it was in red, and I said, nope, we're going to skip that altogether. Um, but this one makes sense too, right? You have this exposition, you have whatever the world is. You have, and my story would work with this one, right? Because the inciting incident would be saving Gideon, and then the major turning point would be them being attacked.
Mhm.
And then you get progressive complications. That's kind of the fun and games, the trials, the building friends and allies and
Mhm.
whatever. Some more rising action before you get to the climax, but the climax on this one is at the midpoint. And then you have a
Mhm.
falling action, a turning point. So that's where it's like either a turning point, some like plot twist, right? M. Night Shyamalan probably follows a 5-act structure. And then you have the catastrophe that happens after the turning point. So like, oh my God, you're the heir to the throne. Catastrophe, and then some sort of resolution after that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting that the way that little different like diagrams and stuff. Um Also, I did sort of play with like the snowflake one, which I didn't put on here.
Mm-hmm.
But that is like a different kind of thing that I was like listening to a bunch of videos on these, like because I was just as I was driving, I was like listening to people talk through some of these things. But as I was listening to that, I was just like, it's too little, just it's too prescriptive.
Yeah.
Um, I like a structure, but I just like for some reason, let me see. I wrote out for that long story, I wrote out 42 plot points for that story that I was working on last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like a big story with like I think there's like fucking 40,000 words in it. Oh, I'm curious actually. Yeah, it's like 38,000 words. Yeah, her inciting incident is the shit at work. His inciting incident is her going missing.
Mhm.
And his like call to adventure, that's is her going missing.
Mhm.
And his mentor is her coworker who tells him, here's what's up. And
Mhm.
they go up. And then yeah, he does kind of let me see this the rest of
I
this.
love how this doesn't sound like a fantasy, but I know it is, or sci-fi. I and
No,
I
mine
but I
is fantasy. It's just
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it could be it could also be a sci-fi. Test allies, yeah.
Well, there's
So the
magic,
first
so it's
threshold
not
is going through
sci-fi.
the cave. Test allies, enemies. That's like yeah, he's literally in a cave the entire time. He's walking up through this underground thing. Um, and then her scenes were like yeah. She also meets, like, the weird religious people, and I guess those are, like, her mentor, and then she's, like, discovering magic. That's probably her fun and games section or, like, the
Mhm.
test allies enemies. But see yeah, hers is harder to plot, and then oh, okay, when he emerges, maybe that's the ordeal? No. So he emerges, but he doesn't find her. He still has to find her.
Mhm.
That's almost like the first threshold, actually. Even though it's not, it can't be. No, no. It has to be the reward. That's the reward. The cave is the ordeal, the reward is that, and then the road back is maybe him on land? Yeah.
You're looking at the hero quest?
Yeah. For the for my that,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
like, basically, he's
Well, I
most of the
mean,
book, he's walking through this cave, and then he gets on land, and doesn't find her right away, and I wasn't maybe I was gonna have him fight her in the
that
fucking book is
sounds
what I was gonna have
that
him do.
sounds like the ordeal. It sounds like his innermost cave is him walking through, right? It's a lot of like the fun and games
Yeah.
test and enemies and allies during the cave walking. The innermost
Yeah.
cave, that could actually be the innermost cave when he comes out and she's not there.
Well, he doesn't really expect her to be. That's the thing that's what makes it interesting is that he basically has no confirmation that she's even up there, or if she is, she could be anywhere. Like he's kind of like on a wild goose hunt, and he knows that this is
Yeah.
like
Then
probably not going
this
to work, and he's just going to try it.
your story structure sounds like it works better for Save the Cat because that would be the midpoint. Because he's done all
Mm,
his fun and games, this is a midpoint. Literally, he's just made it.
yes,
He's crossed over all of the underground world and now he has to do the above ground world. Literally
yes.
the midpoint.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, then
And then
yeah,
you
when
have
his kind of
yeah,
like bad guys close in because
yep, bad guys close in. He's
gangster.
got to do some weird fighting stuff. He's got to encounter with some things, some trials and tribulations, and then he's going to have an
Hmm.
all is lost moment, I'm sure, where he
Yeah.
something seems amiss, right? Or
Well,
he
and he just
loses
is
her.
like, I'm never gonna fucking find her.
Exactly.
There's
So
a
that's
huge
his
world up here.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I thought there
That's
was only underground.
yeah, and then so that would be the dark night of the soul
Yeah.
would be when he reacts to I'm never going to find her,
Yeah.
right? All is lost is like kind of the moment where he thinks he might find her and he doesn't, or something goes where he finds her for a second and then she's captured or something, gets a
Mhm.
glimpse of her and then she's taken away. And then the dark night of the soul would be when he's like, I'm
Mm.
cooked,
He
as
he's fine.
as the
They
kids
think
say.
he thinks that she's dead because he asked somebody. Oh, he asked somebody if someone came out of this place, what and they're like, oh, only dead bodies come out of there.
Yeah.
Um.
Yeah. So then he's got to sit with that for a minute and be like, what did I do? I can't go back. I can't go forward. I'm lost.
Mhm.
Like literally, there's nothing for me to do. She's dead. I don't know if I can go home again,
Yeah.
whatever. And then he's got to start gathering his team. He's got to figure out who he needs on his side. He's got to execute the plan, not make the plan, but execute the plan. So that's when he would be like running into some shit. And then there's some surprises there.
See, I was gonna have him like so her story is more about the magic in
Hmm.
itself in the world, and so the ending was gonna be like the where she uses her magic in like a fight, and no one's ever done that before. It's like
Yeah.
she sort of finally learns to wield it. But he's there with her, and so I was gonna have him find her like right before, but maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should have him like so his arc needs to end with her finding her because that's his
Yeah.
like the fulfillment of his inciting incident.
Hmm.
Hers is like her inciting incident is like she gets like shoved out of the world.
So his fun and games is him trying to get to the surface. Her fun and games, she's already on the surface. is while
Yeah, and,
she's
like,
on the
she
surface.
meets, like, the tribe who
Mhm.
has all this religious shit,
So
and then
then
she discovers her magic and stuff.
yeah, so her catalyst would be waking up on the surface, and
Mhm.
his
Yes.
catalyst is that she never came home.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Mhm.
And then so but her resolution should be using magic or finding out or making use of her
I think that should be high tower of surprise. That should be I think it should be part of this the finale, right? So she has this dark moment, right? Whatever
Mhm.
her dark moment is, and then she's like, "No, fuck that. I gotta do what my goal is." And part of that high tower, part of the finale is that she summons magic and uses it to fight.
Yeah, well, I do have scenes where she's wielding magic before that,
Mhm.
but she kinda doesn't I guess so
Maybe she
when
digs into
she
a like, maybe she, like, pulls from a deeper well, or maybe she's using her magic
mm,
in ways that have not been used, right? Even if she's wielding magic above surface and she's using it, maybe she doesn't realize the extent of what her power can do or the
yeah.
extent of what magic can do.
So I guess the fun and games would be when she's sort of figuring out the magic
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah, training is
The
always
bad
fun
guys
for me.
close in is when the threat to the tribe comes,
Mhm.
and then, her Dark Night of the Soul.
What is her all is lost moment? What happens to her that makes her almost break or break?
Let me see. Let me see if I wrote anything.
And
Um,
again, this is a good exercise because then if you don't have that, then, like, yeah, you can veer from this path and that's fine. But maybe it means that part of the arc is missing and you need like there were parts of the thing that were missing for me and I was like, "Oh, I got to come up with some stuff here."
yeah. Yeah, I don't think she has one right now. But I have a lot of problems because I feel like I don't know what she wants. I know very clearly
Mhm.
August wants to find her
Yeah.
and to make up and to
Mhm.
fix things. You know, like his for the it starts with him being super depressed, going to work, getting fired,
Mhm.
feeling too embarrassed to tell anyone that he just lost his job, and then
Mhm.
telling her, and then just being depressed, and then she goes missing. Oh, and the premise of this entire story started with him thinking, "My wife didn't come home. She must have finally gotten sick of me," and that's why he doesn't look
Yeah.
for her for 2 days, because
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, yeah, makes sense." So,
Yeah.
it's like it's him finally being, like, very active,
Mhm.
and it's so but for her, she's just discovering she got forced to the surface.
What was her life before? They have no access to magic before she doesn't know she has access to magic, right?
There's no such thing as magic in the world, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's forced to the surface. I'm not sure why she's forced to the surface, but that's fine.
She's executed, and it ends up with her getting flushed down this, like, river into, like, this thing. Like, I don't really know about water technology, but that's
Okay.
not really a real Earth, so I don't
Yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah,
we'll
that's
figure
fine.
something out.
That's
But
fine.
she kinda gets pushed to this underground river. Most people die on it because it's kinda
Mhm.
dangerous. She just happens to survive. She thinks she's dying.
Was
That
it
was
a
originally also the
was it a punishment for something that she's executed?
she knows too much information. Yes.
Ah,
Yes, and so she's kind of just trying to discover things about the world, and she's interested, but she's not like it's just like a passive
does
interest
she intentionally know too many things, or was it like she stumbled upon
like
some
that.
yeah, okay, so she stumbled upon some, like, government shit,
Yeah,
and they're like, You now you have too many names, and you
exactly.
gotta
They're
go."
taking no chances.
So then her goal is to find out the truth. Her
Yeah,
goal
I just felt like
is
that was lame because that's what
no,
everyone
because
does.
no, because now her husband and her daughter live in a corrupted world. So she
Yeah,
needs to find out the truth so that she can bust open that corruption and save her family and save everybody else that's under the surface. She needs to go full, I need to save my people.
yeah.
That's what it
What
needs
she'll
to
do in
be.
the second book, I think, is like where she goes back and well,
Yeah,
actually, no. Before she can do that, the like empire, the evil, the big bad, because of what they find out about her from the battle in the end of the book,
yeah,
they go, "Oh, the people down there, some of them can do this
yeah,
magic shit.
yeah.
Let's go and basically the like, they're like bomb shelters, right? They're
Mhm,
very deep underground to the point people don't know that the other world exists. So they just start cracking open these places and being like, let's go get all the people. And so people who didn't know that other people existed are just getting their
mhm.
worlds busted open,
Well, and I
which
think that she
and
should
she
I
that's when
mean
she goes to try and save some of those people.
Yeah, I think that it could be a like I'm sure that you are familiar with Plato's allegory in the
Yeah.
cave. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's
that
there's cave stuff in here, yes.
Sure, but like even without it actually being a cave, this is the allegory, right? That
Uh-huh.
and it over what lies perfectly with the actual story because she sees the shadows on the wall and realizes that those aren't really shadows. What the fuck is that? And then the guy who's controlling the shadows is like, "Fuck, she knows they're not shadows. Dump her."
It's funny
And
because what she sees is a beam of sunlight.
it's hilarious. Yeah. So she
Yeah.
realizes that the shadows on the wall. Sorry, I guess I should like okay. So
Oh, yeah, yeah.
because we have listeners and they might not know the allegory of
Oh, yeah,
Plato.
yeah, recap it, yeah.
Plato's allegory, and I'm going to butcher this, but Plato's allegory is essentially that there's these people who are chained inside
I've heard
of a
they're
cave.
chained.
They're chained inside a cave. They can't leave the cave. They're chained in the cave. And that there's a world above them or behind them, depending upon the depictions of the allegory. But there's a world above them, and there's people above them. And so the sun hits them and casts their shadows onto the wall of the cave. Now, because the people in the cave are chained there or stuck there and do not know about the world above, they think that the shadows are actual beings, that they're not a reflection of a different world, but that they're actual beings. And what and then there's this one person who gets loose and realizes those are not real people, those are shadows. And so they climb their way to the top. They're blinded by the light of the truth, and then they are above the cave and they can see the world for what it really is. They see the men and the women who are forming the shadows that are the illusion for the people trapped in the cave. And it's our job to break the chains of our cave and stop looking at the illusions that the people up top are giving us.
Mm,
This makes sense for today. And
okay.
to crawl our way out of the cave into the light of truth. And so I know that you like literally wrote this, but like I think this works still, right? That what
Yeah,
she saw,
it's
what she sees is that a that's not real. That's not a
yeah,
shadow. I'm
or
putting
that's
this
not
into
what
the
I know.
yeah, yeah, and I'm
Yeah,
putting into the terms of the allegory, right? So
yeah,
she
yeah.
sees the shadow on the wall and realizes that's that's not a real thing.
Mhm,
And so before she can start her climb, they try to kill her. And they unintentionally rocket her ass to the surface where the truth is available. And
mhm.
she's blinded by it and she has fun in games with it. But now her goal is that her family and all of her people are still chained to that wall.
Yeah, and she does think they're down there to yeah.
And the only way to unchain them and bring them to the surface is to take down this power. So she's literally,
Mm,
I think that her goal could be to break the chains of bondage that are holding these people in the cave. And that's
mm.
not lame.
Maybe that's
That's
the
every fucking
final
damn
story, though. Maybe that's, like, the series arc.
but she can start to work for that, that even within this, like, you can still have that as a motivation and it worked for here, right? So she's opening image, whatever, the theme, so her catalyst, she she sees this thing, she gets yeeted, she goes to the surface. Then we have fun and games where she does the training, she meets a mentor, she meets friends, yada yada, she gets magic or whatever, she has access to it, she starts training.
Mhm,
Then you have a midpoint, right? Now her husband's on the surface. That's his midpoint, whatever her midpoint is.
mhm.
Then bad guys close in. So
That's the tribes attacking her,
that's the
yeah.
tribe attacking her.
But they're attacking the surface, the tribe that she joins, the new friends she makes, it's like a threat she doesn't know attacking the new friends.
That could be part of her fun and games then.
Yeah, but then I'm like, but ultimately the climax was she's reunited either right before or during the battle where basically she's wielding her magic for the first time. She
Mhm.
wants what she wants the whole time is to go back down. But they
Mhm.
say they think there's no way to get down there.
Mhm.
Nobody has ever gone down there. And
Mhm.
also and then they and basically when she is finally able to try and go, she's trapped because of this force. So that's why the finale the climax is like this fight where she uses her magic,
Mhm.
but then that doesn't resolve with the going to help the people.
Here's what I
But the series
also
could.
well, so the execution of new plan could be that she wants to save everybody.
Yeah.
And so then what she needs to do in this book is save herself
Mhm.
from something, right? And I think that there could, I mean, takes a little more flushing. This might be something that we have to do a little bit
Yeah. Well, and I'm
off.
not necessarily married to that structure necessarily. Because I feel
Yeah,
like
and
it fits that she just it's not that she wants to save the village. She does, but, like, she's not
mhm,
intentionally there trying to. She's just trying to, like, get out of there, and this is a
mhm.
way.
Yeah, and that could be the midpoint that she has because midpoint
Mhm.
also says, right, that there's a midpoint is either a false victory or a false failure. The A storyline and the B storyline will commingle and the stakes will raise. So yeah, I think that's the perfect place that battle is the midpoint. That she has this victory and she's like,
Mm.
"Fuck yeah, we defeated this thing." And then what they realize is they've defeated one small tribe in the surface. She's got a whole fucking host of nonsense to actually fight, to
Mhm.
take down.
Yeah. Although, yeah, sorry, not to talk about my story the whole time, but
No,
it is weird
we'll talk
because
about mine, it's fine.
the people who keep them down below the surface, that's all they're trying to do is that they're just trying to keep people below the surface.
Mhm,
They're not the people above the real bad, the big bad is the surface empire that that she's initially fights. So she does like a little battle and the big fight is
mhm,
with them, but the people who killed her, they're
mhm.
not really evil. They are just we were told that
Protective.
if we let anybody above ground that it's going to be we're all going to die, and so they think they're protecting. So it's like she's needs to bring the people above ground, but it's not like that's the big evil,
So
you know.
the what if that's what we are made to think is that the big evil is underground and by the end of the book she somehow
Realize it's not the big evil.
yeah, but then that means that she has to find her way. Does she find her way back underground in the first book?
No, I wasn't going to have her do that for a
Okay.
while. Like as I was going to have the big bad crack
What
open the
if
underground and her be like, "Oh okay, let's go help people."
okay.
Kind of like before
I
she could
mean
get to them.
but here's the thing, the her sort of um her real victory at the end of the book could be that she's somehow brought in some information back to the under.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that could be right by reuniting with her husband and him being like, I know how to get home, like I know how to get back. And she's like, I have so much information. And that's their new plan is like, we gotta go down. We gotta go back home.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I think I was sort of thinking that
Because
her
her yeah,
goal
because
was to reunite with him, but then I was like, but she's not really her. It is
I
her goal,
also
but it's not.
I think it should be her goal so that she can bring information. So
Hmm.
that she can start chipping away and she can bring in the knowledge. There is a surface, there are people up here, there's a world up here, there's magic up here, there's stuff that we need that is we're being limited. And one, maybe you can like raise the evil value a little bit on the people who are
Hmm.
running underground. That I think could work out for a first book.
Although
Um,
part of me likes the benign evil of people just being like, we
ooh,
got to
that's
keep
fun.
ourselves safe,
Yeah,
and how fucked that is.
yeah.
Um.
The banality of evil is fucking terrifying. Yeah. I like that too. Well, and then that could be it too, right? Where that also leans into the readers too, where like it's not a bigger baddie, and you start to. I think that that's what makes for some really good villains is when you can kind of identify
Mhm.
and empathize with some of the villains, where you're like, yeah, no, I wouldn't want to fucking go to the surface. Look what's up there. Like, of course, I'd be wanting to keep this thing, and so maybe it's
Yeah.
not a big baddie, but it's a big conflict, right? Where
Yes.
it doesn't have to be nefarious necessarily in the sense that what they're after is
Right.
just like big mwahaha moments,
Yeah. They
but
think they're
that
doing the right thing. Yeah.
yeah, and that I think makes for actually probably makes for a better villain is when the villain thinks that what they're doing is for good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. See, I need to fix. Well, maybe I can just make her. Hmm. Yeah.
What you could do is one, I think there's two things. You could think about just her plot and not worry about the husband at all and just try to run her through the narratives and see like if you were only writing a story about her, what would that be and have that narrative arc and then
Hmm.
kind of treat them similarly and then figure out how you can cross those worlds over or whatever.
Yeah. Because the central goal
Um
was to get back to with him because that's
mhm.
her family.
Yeah.
But then I guess
But
that leaves the magic aside, which is
yeah.
also kind of the whole point.
Also, I think that one of the problems with running our story through these is that we have it in our mind that we are setting out a story that has it's a series. And
Yes,
while these story structures work, right? A lot of the ones that I found to not work and what was like things like um I mean the hero journey maybe not, but like so the 5-act structure. I'm like, I could use that, but there's not necessarily a resolution for my story because I have every intention of leaving it on a kind of a cliffhanger. So I'm like, well,
yes,
so then how do you have falling action if you have a cliffhanger? You need to have a falling action, you have to have like a little bit of a question or a rising action or something and then leave it.
because you're
And
still resolving your inciting incident. That's
yes.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then you also have to think like yes, every book in a series should have these narrative arcs, but then also you have to think about your whole
Larger.
series
Yeah.
should also follow its own arc. And so it's a little bit trickier. If we were writing one-offs, I guess it would be a little bit more straightforward to put this into. But
Mhm.
our stories still have to have some resolution. Um,
Yeah.
I managed to so I did
This is
this
Save the
for
Cat.
this is Save the Cat. So I went through
Okay.
Save the Cat and I took what it's called, so all the areas, right? Opening image, themes stated, setup, catalyst, all those beats. I put the definition or the description of those beats next to that so I at least know what that
Yeah.
is as I'm writing.
It's
And then
useful.
I have a Genevieve and a Liev section. Now I was going to do it for Gideon, but I don't feel like Gideon is really, I mean, he's MMC-ish, but I feel like he's going to have POV chapters and I
Mhm.
could do this for him, but I feel like a lot of the spaces that where I'm trying to talk about the narrative arc, Genevieve's experiencing these with Gideon, and so they're also his
Mhm.
catalyst, his low point, his whatever. But she's the hero, right? So like
Yeah.
yes, whatever, but like she's the hero. And Liev is the kind of the hero of his story to some degree.
Mhm.
So we start with the opening scene. They're sparring in the Glen. We get the stated right, so stated themes. I kind of skipped that because I was like,
That's fine.
well,
It's hard.
that one's a little, I feel like it'll just kind of work itself out as opposed to, but it's like a subtle allusion to what the story is really about. That's where I
That's like
have
when you've
some,
already written the story, you put,
yeah,
"Oh,
and
this,"
like I have a
Well, it's kind of like in that first, because well,
the
it doesn't really
the
be in the first chapter.
well, and you have right, so a subtle allusion to what the story's really about. You already know that they're Fae. You already know that they don't have magic. And you know within the first two chapters that always been kind of called to travel or to go do something bigger than what she's been given, and she feels a little trapped. And Liev is totally content to be who he is and live his life and walk in his dad's footsteps, right? So like
Mhm.
you I guess that's kind of where we're at, but you know
So it's
that the
about, like,
story
exploring
it's
or
about a
coming to
little bit about it.
potential?
Yeah, coming into
Yeah.
potential, and that they live in there's some aspect of magic that they don't have access to, and like, let's be real, it's a fucking fantasy book, so they're gonna have magic. Like, they're gonna come into
Mhm,
magic or find magic or use magic or something. That's the theme, right? It's an
mhm.
adventure story about magic. That's what you get.
Yeah.
Um, the setup, right? So that's when I have like the home life, the trips to the market, working in the kitchen with mom. They go to the revel. Then you have that Thaddeus kind of moment, the storyline with
Mhm,
Thaddeus, which I don't think you've gotten to.
mhm,
Um, and then for Liev's, it's still those same things, but slightly veered, right? So it's also like him in that same home life area, him with his instrument. He also helps on the farm, right? He helps his dad, and then you have the Thaddeus, his side of the Thaddeus secret reveal moment. Then you have the catalyst, and so right. I have a part one, part two for Genevieve, and only really one catalyst for Liev. So the part one, she saves Gideon, and then the family is attacked. Her That's her plot one, plot two for catalyst. Where Liev's catalyst really is when the family is attacked, right, and kind of the aftermath of that. And
Wait,
then
and to be fair, I don't even think that that's 2 events. It's really one s
yeah,
it might be in different chapters, but it's really, like, one
Yeah,
moment,
and it's
so
separated by this, like, really high tense kind of
mhm.
interaction, healing something, so it
Yeah,
feels a little bit like, "What the," but
yeah.
whatever. So I guess I have an inciting incident and a catalyst. They kinda serve slightly different. The debate works out differently for them, right? Like, she has a full-on "take me back, I need to go back" moment where she does not wanna do this, she wants to go back home, she wants to save her family, she says, "Fuck this is stupid." Where Liev's is like, "How did this happen? I what am I gonna do?"
Yeah.
Right? Because of his predicament. Um, the hero can no longer fight. She's gonna have a moment. I don't know what his I don't have a point for that for Liev, where it's like the hero can no longer fight it. It's time to just begin their journey of change. Right? I guess he's just gonna have to accept that he's in the fucking dungeons, right? Um,
I mean, because he's yeah.
that like he's captured. He's
It works
trapped.
better when you have an active character, so until he becomes active, it's not gonna be the same. It might
Yeah,
just be that his entirety of his capture how long is he captured for? Like, the whole book up until the last moment?
pretty much.
Okay, so he's not I think he doesn't really have, like, the same arc unless it's an
Yeah.
internal one.
But here's the thing, it still hits all the beats except for that one.
Okay.
So, then you introduce helper characters. So, like, Ren and Cormac are already introduced, but we get more of them,
Yeah,
right? We get
exactly.
more of their story, more of their personality. They become more active. And then we also, on Liev's side, we meet Nethera. That's like his main, like, helper person. She's gonna help him with dungeons. She's gonna tell him what to eat and what not to eat, what's poisoned, what's not poisoned. Like, right? Like,
Mhm,
she's gonna be like the one that kind of fucking hangs with him. And then the fun and games for Genevieve is the travel, right? The banter with the boys, learning how to
mhm,
depend on each other. She's going to ask for some training. I got some like, hotel in scenes stuck in, trapped in my head. The bonding moments, the like secret, the fucking, side fucking glances at each other and the
mhm,
internal, whatever, all that shit. And then for Liev, his fun and games, he's in a dungeon, right? But then we're going to get interrogations. You're going to have his bonding moments with Nethera, him hearing weird information that doesn't make any fucking sense, that's alluding to characters that we have no fucking clue who they are. And like, what are they talking about? And they keep talking about an heir. And he's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, right? So you're getting these little sort of clues that he
mhm.
gets, but his fun and games is really about bonding with Nethera in the dungeons and and trying to figure out this new world that he's trapped in. The midpoint is the Valley of Vision. We've talked about the Valley of Vision at length. I would love to write each point of view of the four people in the Valley of Vision. I think it's a great way to set up some of Cormac and Ren's backstory without being really explicit and being a little like, lots of foreshadow, lots of whatever, and the readers being very confused. But I'm also open to it only being a Genevieve Gideon point of view for like a 2 chapter midpoint Valley of Vision versus a 4 chapter. Um,
Gives you in parts.
and I can also like go back through it, right? It can also be like she can have a conversation where, she asks Cormac why it didn't bother him, and he's like, because, whatever. But there's also ways that I can put in some subtlety. Anyways, I don't know. I don't know if it's 2 chapters, I don't know if 4 chapter, but my midpoint is them in the Valley of Vision. The midpoint though for Liev is when there's a thing that happens with Nethera. That's kind of his mid, like, this is not cool, right? Um, then the bad guys start to close in. Um, this is it says it's similar to fun and games. It's how the hero will recover from the midpoint before they react to their lowest points. So there's a little bit of a cooldown, right? Um, Genevieve and Gideon kind of have some a shift in their relationship and the ways in which they interact with each other. You can read that more specifically because it gives away too much.
I'm looking at it right now.
Um, we get some awkward moments, right? And some like vulnerability in those chapters. Whereas with Liev, we get this I thought I wrote it in here. His dad finds him. I think his dad's gonna find him around the midpoint
In the dungeons?
when he's in the dungeon. So his dad is going to we don't know this. We're just gonna see him. We're not gonna get a full Yuri POV chapters, but Yuri is going to have been working with underground resistance, finding his way to the dungeons to try to free his son. So I think midpoint is going to be this Nethera moment and also like dad found me.
Mhm.
So then his bad guys close again, right?
It's like the escape or something.
Yeah, this is so once his dad is an option, that's when he starts to like I think his bad guys close in is when he starts to be like, I'm gonna try to get her out too. Like if
Mm,
he's gonna save me, I'm not leaving without her kind of a moment. Then there's the all is lost moment. So, right, people are captured and people are hurt. Liev has a bit of an awakening of some things happening, and I have figured out how to work that in because of this that
mhm, mhm,
this guy does. That's how I can get away with the things that are trapped inside of him kind of loosening up a little bit.
mhm. Yeah, Leova
Um
is the character I don't know that I didn't know as much of his story.
yeah, well,
I
cuz
knew a lot of
I
Joe.
fleshed out a lot of his story when I was doing this cuz I was like, well, I know I have points for it, but I didn't have it completely fleshed out.
Oh, okay.
How the characters react to to their lowest point, right? She's heartbroken, but she's
Mhm,
also angry as fuck. He kind of gives up and is just like, do this instead of what you were going to do.
mhm.
Mostly because this is what's been ordered. And then there's the big surprise moment. And then there's the I'm mad about the big surprise moment. And then they execute a plan. Sorry, I'm just following Genevieve's right now. Then they execute the new plan for what book two will be about. And then there's the cliffhanger for the final image. And then with Liev's, you have he kind of it says like gathering the team, and I'm like, well, he's kind of in a place to not really do that. So he kind of does something that falls into that line, but it's a little weak. He comes up with a
It's like
plan.
he has a small team.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
so, like, this could all be, like, one chapter, right? Because this is all part of the finale, so the gathering of team and executing the plan, they don't have to be separate chapters, right? So
Yeah.
Liev's gets a little bit kind of smushed towards the end. Executing of his plan, he does this, right? And starts
Mhm,
to there's a kind of a fight back moment. The big surprise for him is having what
mhm.
has awoken in him kind of get real loud for a minute, and he does
Yeah.
something that he doesn't think is possible. And
Cool.
then they're freed and they're in an underground safe house or encampment or something. I haven't quite I know what it looks like in my head, but I haven't figured out the logistics of what it actually is, but they do go like they get out cuz right, happy endings.
Mhm,
And then to execute the new plan, they decide to go back home, right? And he's like, "Why the fuck are we going back home?" And then that's when his dad says some some things that are a little bit like
mhm.
that harken back to what he's heard during his time in the dungeons that didn't make sense. His dad said something that triggers it and makes him start putting things together in his head. And that's when he, in the final scene, asks, who is Hadrian? Is how that ends.
Mhm.
And so their arcs line up, and I could technically write the story that goes back and forth for each beat with
Yeah.
them. Um, this took a while though to get his fleshed out because I kind of had hers already fleshed out in my head,
Yeah.
but his, especially at the end, so everything from like all is lost down, I was like, I don't know, he's just got to get out of a dungeon. Like I knew the
Mhm.
end point. I knew the last line of his part of the book. I knew exactly how it ended. I have the scene in my head, right? They're basically like in like imagine like a medieval homeless encampment, right? It's like underground or in a tunnel and they're like garbage fires and they're all sitting around eating fucked up soup or drinking weak ass tea or something. And
Mm.
his last line is, who is Hadrian? And his dad's like, ready for a story, son? Kind of a moment, right? And then like that's where it ends. So then the readers are like, well, what the fuck? Like you have enough information to kind of put things together,
Yeah.
but you don't know the real story. And then, hers ends where like you think that they've come up, okay, cool, we have this plan, we have this deal in order, and then the deal very fastly does something that they're not expecting. And then the last line of the book is is Atheron's words. That's what I'll
Mhm.
say.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think yours is like super it like does fit a lot of the beats. And again, it doesn't have to fit every single one of the beats. You can flip stuff, you can like
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, as someone who is not like this not I haven't been doing this for millions of years, right?
Mhm.
I'm like, it makes sense
It's a
for me
good
to plug this.
exercise.
Yeah, it's a good exercise. It's good to plug it in. I also think that for me, I like formulas. I like being able to put them into a structure. And I think it makes it like this helps my brain organize thoughts. Um,
Mhm.
but when you write organically, I think that these tools are better served as like a rubric as opposed to the beginning stages, right?
Yeah.
And it's a good place to figure out, well, did I miss something, right? Is do I,
Mhm. Or
whatever.
like, why don't I have this
And
thing? And like, oh,
yeah,
because I don't want it, or because, oh, that doesn't really make sense.
yeah,
I should
well,
change that.
and there is so many. I mean, like we said with this first image that we have, which I'm sure we'll link somewhere, like there's a ton of different options. Again,
Mhm.
there's crossover, there's similarity, there's a through line, but there are
Yeah.
so many different ways. There's not one way to write a book.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of books that we have read that don't follow perfectly with these, right? Or ones that follow, but the percentages are way off. Like, if we go back to what we were talking about with Akatar and the hero's journey, right? Like, her innermost cave is 2/3 of the fucking book.
Yeah.
And
And
that
you know what's
and
funny?
that's
Everyone says at the beginning drags.
yeah, and right, and so it's like, we get to this innermost cave, which is only step 7, and that was almost 300 pages for us to read. And
Mhm.
then we finally get to ordeals, and now we're like, hell yeah, we're on board. But then we only have 100 pages till we get to Return of a with the Elixir. Like what? So for 300
Mhm.
pages, she's waddling through meeting mentors who are not really mentors because it's just Alice being a bitch for a minute, and then she gets a couple of fucking tests and enemies and allies, which suck because they're Tamlin, and then we finally get good stuff. And so, like, even if you're and this is not me just shitting on Akatar, I adore Akatar, but this is these beats don't give you percentages, and there are charts that give you what percentage of the book should be this and where should this happen in the first. I mean, I've even seen them come down to like word count where it's like the
No,
first,
yeah.
yeah, 10,000 words is just this, and then you need to have 30,000 words of that, and I'm like, that's crazy formulaic,
And
which
some of
is
that's because of like if you're in a certain genre, like
mhm,
there is like a fantasy book has an accepted word count
yeah,
that's typical and that you want to hit those. And so I
yeah.
get it. But like
Well,
yeah,
and same with like the murder mysteries, right? I was looking up how long a murder mystery is. They're like, well,
I
a
guess
typical novel's,
80K.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They were like a typical novel is 80 to like 110,000, but murder
Hmm.
mysteries usually fall in the like 75 to 85, right? And the
Yeah.
first thing in Act One is like present the crime. That's the first thing I'm doing. We don't need to do this like hook and plot points. We're just like, boom, bitch dead. Like, and because
Yeah.
that's like the whole story is about a murder, right? Or about a
Well, and
crime or
you don't
whatever.
there's less world building typically and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
fantasies, I don't remember exactly, but I feel like it's like at least 150,000. Maybe like 120. I don't really know.
Yeah, like there's a lot more kind of to get through when you're building a world. And then those percentages all change if you're writing a series, right? Because you don't have to do all of the as much of the legwork on world building that you did in book 1. Because in book
Mhm.
1, people know nothing. Book 2, they come in, they got a sense of what's going on, and you can add and you can change and you can continue to build, but you're not laying that same like those
Mhm.
foundation stones the way you're doing in the first book. So then your hero's journey plot points for book 2, right? If we ran Court of Silver Flame through this, those plot points would be way different percentage wise because we already have 4 books previous that told us all about Prithian.
Yeah, although I would say that exposition doesn't necessarily need to be all like, in that beginning part either, but yes.
Sure.
Yeah,
And if you're
it
doing
is
it,
makes to streamline things for sure.
yeah. And I think it's about the like the setting up, and maybe not so much setting up the whole world, right? Because then we get
Mhm.
Crescent City, right? We get books that are far too much exposition
Yeah.
in the beginning where you're just like, wow, that's an inundation of the entire fucking layout of your government system, and I didn't need that.
Yeah.
But also like, and you can do that throughout, but the like the ordinary world, what does the ordinary day look like, what are they leading up to? Because in the reality of it, like Crescent City has a shit ton of exposition, but also her call to action happens way early in that book. And it's a well, it's actually, I think it's her
No, I don't necessarily
actually
think so.
her first threshold. Like, is her call to action when Danica dies, or is
No.
that her first threshold? That's her first threshold, right?
No, I think her call to action is when she's working with Hunt. When she gets put what to work with Hunt to solve it. Am I crazy? me see. Let
No,
me
you're
see.
not crazy.
Because like when I think about like
Got you.
the story
Yeah.
is solving Danica. Danica is the ordinary life, is the other
Oh
stuff.
God.
So like the arc is her coming to
Yeah.
terms, grieving, and so it doesn't start until she's definitely started grieving. I mean, Danica could be the inciting incident maybe, and then the call to action. Hold on, let me go look at the fucking chart. Yeah, so I'd say the call to adventure is Danica's death slash her getting paired up to work with
Yeah.
Hunt, and she initially refuses a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
And then he's also kind of her mentor at the same time
Yeah.
too. Gosh. Wait, did we talk about everything with your story? You honestly, there's not that much to talk about because you're like you had it. You just fucking I had a lot of questions. I was like, but what is this?
I'm I am very excited because I feel like here's what I feel like is going to happen between our books. It's that you early on don't have as much planning and you don't necessarily know how the narrative is going to work. And then you're going to come out with a book that is brilliant, and that's going to be frustrating for me because I am going to have plot pointed all of
No.
this, and I'm going to be like, look at this beautiful symmetry in this plot, and look at the beautiful symmetry in the narrative arc, and I have all of it mapped out. And then when I actually put words on the page, it's going to be gobbledygook and be not, and it's going to need so much editing.
No. I
And
mean,
that's just going to be the nature of like people who, but I think that's the beauty
it
of it
always
too.
needs so much editing, yeah. Did you, write anything by this week? I just wrote, like, 800 words, it wasn't anything crazy.
I wrote a chapter that happens um after the attack, and I don't know when I wrote that. I don't think it was this week. I think it was the end of
Mm,
last week. And it might have been part of what I said I wrote the last time we checked in, because this
yeah,
last week it's been a little bit of a whirlwind. But
mhm,
I did write the Take Me Back chapter.
yeah. I wrote a whole fucking beat sheet.
Yeah, I wrote a whole beat sheet too.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
did do that.
yeah.
Yeah. hmm So it is character arcs and goals next week.
Mm,
That's what's on the list. Okay, well, until next time, keep reading,
keep writing.
and we'll see you soon.